All right, so this deep dive takes us right into a real-life mystery. We've got excerpts, notes, photos. It's like someone ripped pages from a thriller and said, figure this out, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Trying to find out what happened to Emma Fisher, a journalist who vanished while working on a huge story.
Yeah, it's interesting. Right away, we see layers of investigation.
Yeah.
We've got Emma's initial work, then her friend Mark, who's also a journalist, searching for her after she vanishes, a story within the story.
Yeah, exactly. Just to kind of paint a picture of this, Mark is Emma's best friend.
Mm.
From way back when they were both in the New York City news scene, both have that drive to uncover the truth, you know? But this time the story got personal for Mark.
Yeah, that makes you think about the kind of person who does this work.
Right.
What kind of personality dives into investigative journalism? Because it's not for everyone.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Emma. She was known for taking on tough stories, and this time she was digging into a corporation called Global Mining Co. At first she was excited, but as she dug deeper, she started to realize this was getting dangerous.
And that shift, that transition from excitement to apprehension, that's often where things start to get really interesting in these stories. That's where the journalist realizes they're not just observing anymore, they're part of the story.
Exactly. And that becomes super clear when Emma finds herself sneaking into an old office building late at night, taking pictures of what looks like a cash exchange. It's not just about uncovering a story anymore. It's about personal risk.
And this is where we see those power dynamics at play.
Yeah.
You have a huge corporation with lots of resources and influence, and then you have Emma, a single journalist with her camera. It's a huge risk for her.
Yeah, and not just her safety, right? Her reputation, her career, everything is on the line if this goes wrong. But she's determined to expose what she thinks is going on. It's admirable, but wow, dangerous.
It makes you wonder what tools each side uses in this battle. Corporations have lawyers, PR firms, they can bury a story. What does a journalist have?
Well, Emma had sources her own instincts and that drive to find the truth, but it's a David versus Goliath situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this case so fascinating. We're seeing that play out in real time.
Now, while all of this is happening with Emma, we also get Mark's side of the story. He starts to get this really bad feeling when Emma goes completely silent. No calls, no messages, nothing. And that's not like her.
That sudden silence, that's a huge red flag, especially for
Mhm.
someone like Mark who knows her so well. It speaks volumes about the danger she might be in.
Right, so Mark goes over to Emma's apartment, hoping to find some clue, some sign of where she might have gone. He talks to her neighbor who mentions seeing Emma leave a few days ago looking flustered.
Again, the concern is growing. It's no longer just about a missed deadline. It's about a friend who has vanished.
Yeah, and then things take an even more unsettling turn when Mark finds Emma's notebook. And on one of the pages it says Global Mining Co. with an address handwritten underneath. It's like she was trying to tell him something.
Like a trail of breadcrumbs. And Mark, with his instincts, knows he has to follow it.
He's not going alone, though. He brings his colleague, Sarah, someone he trusts. And together, they decide to check out this address, this possible link to Emma's disappearance.
I'm really interested to see where this leads. They're walking into the unknown, and the stakes are getting higher.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting to think about Mark's motivations. He's driven by concern for Emma, but there's also that journalistic curiosity. He wants to know what happened. He wants to finish the story.
There's a sense of duty there, like he's taking up the torch.
Yeah.
And that mix of personal and professional drive makes him a compelling character in this story. So Mark and Sarah, they're following Emma's trail, going to that address she left behind. It's like they're stepping right into her investigation.
Risky move, though, right? They have no idea what they might find there, who they might run into. Takes guts to do that, to go into the unknown like that.
It reminds me of those old detective movies. You know, when the partner has to take over after the detective gets in too deep, but this is real life.
Yeah. And they go to meet one of Emma's sources. First stop. Someone she trusted enough to share information with. And this source tells them that Emma was interested in the CEO of Global Mining Co. Mr. Reiner hints that he might be involved in some shady stuff.
Ah, so now the corporate intrigue starts to come out.
Yeah.
The CEO, always a likely suspect, right? Like every corporation has secrets, and Reiner is at the center of this one.
And I bet those secrets are worth a lot of money, which means people would do a lot to protect them.
Exactly. The higher the stakes, the more ruthless people can be. Classic power play. Emma and her search for the truth. She might have become a problem.
Which brings us to Mark and Sarah meeting Rainer. Having that awkward encounter with him at a cafe, he's dismissive, arrogant, even walks out without paying. Doesn't exactly seem like someone with nothing to hide.
You know, I'm looking at this scene, and I'm a little surprised Mark didn't push him harder. I mean, he's a journalist.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he want to see how Rainer reacts under pressure?
Maybe he was trying to be careful, not to spook him. Remember, he and Sarah are already in a delicate situation. They're not just reporters anymore. They're trying to find their missing friend.
True, but there's a balance, right?
Yeah.
Between caution and missing an opportunity, Reiner's attitude, it screams guilty conscience to me.
Maybe Mark sensed that too, but he's also dealing with Emma being missing. He's got to think about that fear that something really bad happened to her.
Tough situation. It shows the emotional impact this is having on him. He's not just chasing a story. He's looking for his friend. That adds a whole other level of pressure.
And at the same time, we see Emma before she disappeared, struggling to find that one piece of solid evidence to expose the company. She's frustrated, feels like she's almost there, but can't quite get it.
That's where her persistence really shows. Investigative journalism. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You need patience, you need to handle setbacks, and not lose sight of the goal.
And for Emma, it meant taking some risks, like staking out that cafe where Reiner meets his contacts, hoping to catch him doing something wrong. She even tries to confront him, which, in hindsight, probably wasn't the best idea.
Yeah, that's a turning point. It shows how determined she was, but also how desperate she was getting. Taking bigger risks. And those risks might have led to her disappearance.
And then there's that detail, Emma realizing that she's being followed. Now it's not just about corporate greed, it's about her safety. She's the target.
Imagine that feeling. Knowing someone is watching you, tracking your every move, adds a whole other level of intensity to the story.
Makes you wonder who was following her. Was it someone from the company trying to keep her quiet? Or someone else?
Don't have the answers yet. But those questions, they create that suspense.
Back to Mark and Sarah now. They've shifted their focus completely to Reiner. They come up with this plan to sneak into his office at the company headquarters during a press event.
I get their desperation, but going into his office, that was a big risk. There were safer ways to get that information. They could have hacked the company's computers, hired a private investigator, leaked the information anonymously.
Maybe they felt time was running out. Every hour that passes, the chances of finding Emma safe, they get smaller. They might have felt they had to do something big, something to get Reiner's attention.
Or maybe it was that journalist's instinct. The rush of chasing a story, maybe that clouded their judgment. Either way, they're in deep now.
And they find something. Suspicious financial documents. Things that suggest something shady is definitely going on, but they're almost caught. Reiner's secretary walks in.
A close call that shows the real danger. They're not playing reporter anymore. They're caught up in something much bigger.
And then we see Emma alone in her apartment, feeling watched like the walls are closing in.
This is where we see the mental strain of this kind of work. The isolation, the fear, always feeling watched. It takes its toll.
And then just when things couldn't get any worse, two men show up at her door and force her to go with them. We see her being taken away. No idea what happens next. So many unanswered questions.
No, you're in Mark's position. You've got these documents, a friend who's been taken, and a powerful company on your trail. What do you do?
Okay, so we're back and things are intense. Mark and Sarah have these documents. Emma's gone, and they're up against this company that's clearly hiding something.
What's interesting is how their roles have changed. They started as journalists, but now they have to think like strategists. It's like a high-stakes game. What's their next move? How do they use this information to find Emma and expose the company?
Right, it's not just a matter of going to the police, is it?
Probably not. Remember, companies like this, they have ways to protect themselves,
Right.
discredit the documents, bury the story, or even go after Mark and Sarah.
So they need a plan. Something that keeps Emma safe and exposes the truth but doesn't put them in more danger.
Exactly. This is where their skills as journalists come in. They have to investigate, strategize, and tell a story all at the same time.
Should they leak the documents anonymously to other news outlets? That way the information is out there, but they're not directly involved.
That's a possibility, but there are risks. Global Mining Co. could try to control the story, discredit the source, even trace it back to Mark and Sarah. They need a better strategy.
It's a tough choice. If they go public, they risk their careers, their reputations, maybe even their lives. But if they don't do anything, Emma might be gone forever, and the company gets away with everything.
And that's the heart of the problem here. Do you choose safety, or do you choose truth and justice? It's something journalists face all the time, and there's no easy answer.
Okay, let's think about this. What's the smartest move for Mark and Sarah? What would you do?
First, they need to make sure those documents are real. Get experts to look at them. Then they need to build a case, a strong narrative that can't be ignored.
So it's not enough to just have the documents. They have to connect the dots, show the illegal activity, and who's involved.
Exactly. They need a story so strong, so well supported, that the company can't deny it.
Then they need to find the right place to tell this story, the right news outlet. Someone known for investigative journalism, someone with the power to make sure people hear it.
Right, they need a partner.
Yeah.
Someone who could help them get the story out and protect them at the same time.
It's like they're putting together a team, people with different skills working together to find the truth and save Emma.
And that's what's so interesting about this whole thing. It shows how investigative journalism really works. It's not one person, it's a group of people sharing their knowledge and working together.
Makes you realize how important a free press is, right? Without journalists who are willing to dig deep and challenge powerful people who would hold companies like this accountable.
Absolutely. It's a crucial role, even if it's not always appreciated.
Right.
But it's essential for a democracy to work.
So we're at the end of this deep dive and we still have questions. Will Mark and Sarah find Emma? Will they expose Global Mining Co.? We don't know, but we see how powerful investigative journalism can be, the courage it takes, and the risks involved in finding the truth.
And that's the takeaway, isn't it? To see how complex these situations are. It's not black and white. It's about the choices people make when faced with incredibly difficult circumstances.
Exactly. And it makes us think about what we would do. Would we have that courage to stand up for what's right, even if it meant putting ourselves in danger?
It's a question worth thinking about. Because in the end, we all have a part to play in making sure the truth comes out and those in power are held responsible.